Happy New Year, everyone! Welcome to 2020. There's tons of awesome games on the horizon, but I'm here to talk about PlayStation VR. Did Santa give you a shiny new VR for Christmas? And that's great. That's why I'm here. When it comes to PSVR, you are truly spoilt for choice. There's great VR shooters like Blood and Truth or Shooty Fruity, AAA ports like Skyrim and LA Noire, or generally silly stuff like Drunken Bar Fight. Ow. That was my cupboard. That being said, it could be a bit overwhelming, so allow me to recommend what I believe are the 5 best games for a new PSVR owner. And let's get straight into it with one of my personal favourite VR games.
Superhot. Superhot.
Superhot VR is first on this list for a reason. Well, it's my favourite VR game, but more importantly, I actually think Superhot VR is the perfect first VR game. And the most important reason is because I believe Superhot VR is the best way to adjust to the weirdness of VR. The first time you put on a headset and grab those Move controllers, it can feel really surreal. And it takes a bit of getting used to, and I think Superhot VR is just the game to do that. So if you've already played the non-VR version, then you know what Superhot is all about. But on the off chance you haven't played it already, let me explain. Superhot is a VR game with a killer gimmick. Time only moves when you do. So if you remain completely still, the world around you freezes. But the other twist is everything dies in one hit, including you. And these rules make Superhot a fantastic combination of VR shooting and puzzle solving. Every move you make has to be calculated. Sure, you're pointing a gun straight at the last guy, but he's got a gun pointed at you too. So do you take that risk? Because firing a gun causes a quick burst of time, meaning your window to try and dodge his bullet is very, very tight. And this is why Superhot VR is so much fun. It's a game that makes you feel like you're in the Matrix. When time is moving slowly, you can see the bullets coming towards you and you can dodge them or try to block them with whatever you're holding. You can catch guns from out of the air or throw knives and other items across the map to eliminate your enemies. Superhot VR is a game that just makes you feel badass in so many different ways. The reason I recommend this as your first VR game is because despite its puzzling and calculating nature, I think it's a game that in many ways you can play at your own pace. I mean, yeah, you die in one hit, but the time manipulation mechanics give you plenty of space to consider your environment, evaluate your options, and decide what to do. And it helps that Superhot doesn't rely on any kind of movement mechanics. Instead, each level plays in sections. Once you eliminate all the enemies in an area, you grab a pyramid that appears in front of you, and then it just teleports you to the next part of the level. And this negates one of VR's biggest hurdles, but we'll get onto that later. All that needs to be said right now is that Superhot VR rules, and I believe it's the best first game for a new VR owner. Okay, so maybe you're not looking for a super immersive VR shooter. Perhaps you want to witness some beautiful sights with no distractions. Look no further than 2018's Tetris Effect. This gorgeous take on the classic arcade game is one of the best VR experiences. I mean, firstly, it's Tetris, so what's not to love about that? However, it's Tetris with some of the most beautiful visuals in recent gaming and a fantastic soundtrack to boot. And in VR, you get to see those designs up close, and I can assure you it looks even better. More so, you can turn off the Tetris side of it and just watch the level play out naturally and even remotely trigger the effects. Maybe you can meditate or do some spiritual thing with Tetris Effect in VR. I don't know. I just like the pictures. Let's switch gears and take a look at Sony's lovely VR platformer Astrobot Rescue Mission. If you've played the robot rescue minigame in Sony's Playroom VR, then this might look a little familiar. And that's because Astrobot is a fully fledged expanded version of Robot Rescue. You control Captain Astro as he explores various worlds to rescue the tiny little robots that make up his crew. Astrobot is a platformer with the kind of detail and charm that you'd expect from a Nintendo game. It's colourful and beautifully animated, but the gameplay is tight and responsive. You view the world through the eyes of a giant robot helping Astrobot to find his friends, So sometimes you might need to twist, lean, or otherwise move yourself around a little to see certain spots. Sometimes you'll need to headbutt parts of the world to clear the obstacles that otherwise impede your vision. And there's even levels that feature a chameleon that you have to spot along the way. The point is that Astrobot feels tailored to VR. Astrobot only plays with a DualShock 4 controller, but there's a reason for it. The DS4 plays an active part in the game. You can see a model that matches up with how you're holding it, but it has a few gimmicks of its own. There's different attachments you'll gain that help Astro traverse the worlds. For example, you get a rope attachment that can be used to pull obstacles out of the way, or create a tightrope that Astro can walk across. The other reason I'm bringing up Astrobot is not just because it's a great game, but it's a good way to ease you into movement in VR. It's a difficult thing because it's so surreal at first, especially if you're just sitting down, but fast movement is really likely to cause motion sickness, and it's a common problem for new VR owners, so it's a thing you need to ease yourself into. In essence, you kinda need to develop your VR sea legs, and Astrobot is a good starting point. You move forward slowly, and that's a good way to help adjust to the visual discomfort that moving around in VR can cause. Astrobot isn't just a good game for a VR newcomer, but a must-have for PSVR owners. Okay, how about something a little more sociable? Let's talk about Rec Room. It's a completely free VR game that has plenty of variety. You can wander around the rec centre and interact with other players, or you can indulge in a range of VR activities. Rec Room has a little something for everyone. Just want to chill out and meet new people? There's always some folk hanging around in the rec centre, which basically functions as like a social hub. And if you want a challenge, then you're spoilt for choice. You can play sports style games like dodgeball and disc golf, PvP games like paintballing and laser tag, or team up in a variety of PvE games from fantasy to sci-fi modes. Rec Room is another game that's good for helping adjust to VR movement. You can choose to travel with teleporting or through smooth movement with plenty of comfort options. And Rec Room has tons of content to let you experience many different things in VR. So if you're starting to feel a little more comfortable with the movement, then maybe try out a game of paintball or grab a sword and fight some monsters. There's plenty of content here, and Rec Room is entirely free to play. It even has a non-VR version and crossplay, so your friends who don't own VR headsets can join you.
Welcome to the family, son.
When Capcom first started showing off Resident Evil 7 to the public, they actually introduced it under the codename Kitchen. They simply billed it as an experimental VR horror demo for Sony's upcoming Project Morpheus. And after a year of terrifying people, Capcom actually revealed it was in fact Resident Evil 7. And I know this one might be a risky choice. Resident Evil 7 is a very intense, disturbing experience, and it's made even more frightening in virtual reality. So it's not for everyone, sure. So allow me to explain why I chose Resident Evil 7. Because I feel it's important to include at least one AAA VR experience, and while I'm aware there's plenty of other choices like Skyrim and Borderlands 2 in VR, I think RE7 is a game that is truly enhanced and improved by virtual reality. So Resident Evil 7 marked a bold change for the franchise. Moving away from the third-person action-heavy shooter direction, Resident Evil 7 went back to basics with a slower-paced survival horror focus, but this time, Capcom made a risky move and made Resident Evil 7 play from a first-person perspective. The result was a strong return to form for the franchise and perhaps the start of Capcom's resurgence over the past few years. Resident Evil 7 sees series newcomer Ethan Winters travel to Louisiana to find his wife who's been missing for 3 years. But upon arrival, he's captured by the twisted Baker family who pursue and torture him throughout their mansion. I played Resident Evil 7 back on day 1 when it came out in 2017, but I didn't get a PSVR until late 2018. So when I came around to playing Resident Evil 7 in VR, I figured it can't scare me too much because I probably remember most of the game. And I wouldn't blame you for thinking the same way as me if you have already played RE7 as well, but let me tell you, you are so very, very wrong. Just as an example, the opening fight with Mia and the family dinner scenes are downright terrifying in VR. Everything that's scary about Resident Evil 7 is only made scarier when there's nothing to take your eyes off the screen. Resident Evil 7 does carry some VR risks though. I've mentioned motion sickness before, and RE7 has some pretty intense scenes that could set it off. However, Capcom did throw in some neat tricks to try and negate the effects, mainly in the form of blackouts when you're getting thrown around in scenes like the initial fight with Mia. But if you're looking for a VR experience that really gets the blood pumping and the heart racing, Resident Evil 7 is an unforgettable game that you should play in VR if you can. So there you go. Those are my recommendations for a new PSVR owner. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to GameLuster. Check out the website for more articles. And thanks for watching.